Welcome to CSC 200 Game Programming. This is the fourth iteration for our Space Invaders program, and this is part B of that fourth iteration. If you have not yet watched part A, please go watch that. This part assumes you have seen part A. So for part B, what we're going to do is take care of what happens when the enemy gets hit by a player bullet or the player gets hit by a bomb that has been dropped by the enemy. This will also require collisions and collision detection. So let's get started with this. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that I have made a new folder, and that new folder is called Shapes, and I took all of the original shapes that have been used in the game, dropped them off into that particular folder. Again, just a little bit of cleaning up, staying organized. It makes life a lot easier later. All right, so for the enemy to go away when it gets hit by a player bullet requires collision, so I'm going to select enemy. And in enemy, same thing as last time, we need to add a body to the enemy. So on this one, that's going to be a rigid body. It needs to be a rigid body 2D. And one thing to make sure of is that when you do this, you take gravity scale, reduce it down to 0. If not, as soon as the game starts to play, the enemy starts to fall out of the sky. So we have done that. Now let's add in a collider of some kind. So I'll come up here and start with COLL. Oh, it helps if you get rid of what was in there, COL. Okay. And for the enemy, it's a box. So a box collider 2D. Now remember, the others are 3D. Don't do that while we're doing a 2D game. So a box collider. And one of the things I want to make sure on the box collider is I have ticked is triggered. Okay, so that sets the enemy up to be able to detect if it has been hit by a bullet. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the player. I'm going to take the player and I'm going to add a component, and I do need to put in the rigid body 2D first, so I'll search for that, add the rigid body 2D, set the gravity scale to 0. Then I'm ready to add in a collider of some kind, so I'll start typing collider and see what we come up with. This is triangular, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the box collider 2D. And you can see the little box that's made around it. Anything that comes to this box will explode. Well, playing the game, and this is a very simple little game, and it turns out it is okay if one of the enemy bombs gets only that close to the player, it still looks right when the game plays. So that part's all right. So I've got a box collider, and I'm going to tick is trigger. Okay, now then, ready to detect something has collided with me. All right, so let's go in, and in our scripts, let's go with, well, we did enemy first to start with. Let's do enemy now. So I'm going to double click on the enemy C# script, and this is what we've got, and this is what moves it, and this is when it tells if it's at one side or the other. And then anywhere along in here, as long as you are not in start or not in update, this is an okay spot to put it. So I'll come down after update, and in this I'm going to create private void, and this is the same thing we did with the barrier. On trigger 2D, on trigger enter. And this is for the 2D version of the game. And in this, we put, again, this filled in for me, collider, collision. That's not an obvious enough name for me, so I'm just going to say other. And other is who we collided with. And on this, the only time we want to be concerned about having collided with something, according to the play of our game, is if I have collided with a player's bullet. So I'm going to say if Now, other again is the object I have collided with. And I can refer to one of its fields and say, if other name happens to be equal to, okay, now this is where you have to get the spelling exactly correct. And if I remember right, this is going to be player bullet, and it's one of the clones that we have just, instantiated and said, here you go, go for it. Well, if I have collided with a player bullet, well, I'm done. I mean, that is literally all there is. And so I'm simply going to issue a command that destroys myself. Destroy, open parenthesis. Well, try that again, Tracy. Destroy, open parenthesis, and I'm going to put this dot game object. And this game object happens to be the enemy. Okay, so we'll do that, and that will cause us to destroy ourselves if we have collided with a player bullet. In other words, they got us. Okay, I'll go ahead and save that. Now then I need to do something very similar to that in player. If player collides with a bomb, then it's time to be gone. Okay, so on this I'm going to put in also private, private, void on trigger enter 2D version. And it's going to fill in again for me. And as always for me, when I'm doing this one, I prefer the variable name to be other. And it's going to be the same thing. If other name happens to be equal to, let's see, this time I'm the player, so if I have collided with an enemy bomb, I'm done. So that's going to be enemy bomb, and again, it's a clone of the enemy bomb. Okay, and if that happens, then I need to delete myself again. So let's see, and got that. I need another close parenthesis and come down here and open a couple of curly braces. Okay, and what I want to do is the same thing. I want to destroy this game object, which is me. Kind of a sad command, but that's how it is. Okay, let's see. So that should take care of it. Let's see what this is trying to tell me. The name could be simplified. Yeah, I know it could be simplified, but I want to be very clear on which game object it is that I am destroying. I'm not trying to destroy the other game object. I'm trying to destroy this game object. So let me go ahead and save that as well. Okay, now then let's go back and see if this actually works. So we go back into Unity. This is the game that we have had playing, and I will turn around and play it and see if I can get the enemy object to be destroyed. And to do that, I've got to get over here in a hurry. Got it. Okay, and it did destroy the enemy. So let me stop this, do it again, and see if the enemy can destroy the player. I've got to wait for a lucky shot. There we go, and the player was destroyed. Okay, so that is how we take care of what happens if the enemy gets hit by a player bullet or the player gets hit by an enemy bomb.